Hey there guys, and welcome to my channel, Over the Black Dot, where I sit here, spew a bunch of bullshit about rugby league, and you call me a moron in the comments. Synergy. I'm just kidding. I just sit there, read the comments, and cry myself to sleep. It's actually really good therapy. Look, I'm just super stoked to be out here actually making videos, because recently I've been so caught up in my work life and personal life, I just haven't been able to manage this, but you're in for a treat. If you could drop a like and maybe a subscribe, then hopefully I'll be able to feed my cat this week. You don't want to kill a cat, do you? It's crazy to think the 2020 season was only 4 years ago. Heck, it's even crazy to think that 2020 was 4 years ago. It just kind of feels like a fever dream at this point. My trip to New Zealand was put on hold and, pretty much everything else was put on hold. TikTok became the world's most popular app behind the dreaded Zoom. We all know too well. And video game speedrunning somehow became an acceptable hobby in society. Now, I, like most of you who's clicked on this video, enjoy sport. And when it got put on hold, I tried to fill my life with something else in the meantime. Some people took up crotcheting, cooking. Some, like me, just waited and did all. See, look, I was optimistic about the return of sport. That's kind of why I waited so long. But to be honest, I just didn't know when it would. So let's go back to February where it all started. Now, preseason games are always fun, as there's a litany of young talent being put on display, getting you reasonably excited for their upcoming NRL debuts. Preseason tournaments are always what gets me psyched for the season to start, as there's always a bit more of a competitive edge, while simultaneously making it thoroughly entertaining to watch. In February, we were treated to a special Nines tournament in Perth. The city that loves rugby league. The competition was actually a rendition of the Auckland Nines, which we last saw back in 2017. That one trophy that Parramatta definitely won. They definitely did. Don't question them about it. See, the Nines are special because occasionally you got to see a veteran come out and play for his old club just for a bit of vintage charm. We saw legends like Brad Fittler and Steve Menzies play in the 2014 edition, despite the fact that they were pretty much in Zimmer frames at this point. Matt King in 2015, and even Kirk Gidley and Pat Richards in the 2020 edition. These tournaments didn't come without controversy, however, as players were more susceptible and at higher risk of getting a long-term injury. Just ask Dragons coach Paul McGregor, who was fuming after the tournament had ended, as he had 3 star players join the casualty ward. These included Matt Duffy with a cheekbone fracture and Corbin Sims and captain Cam McGuinness to broken arms. The tournament was eventually won by the North Queensland Cowboys, who beat the St George Illawarra Dragons in the final, 23-14. Okay, well, at least there was some poetic justice to this, as the Dragons scored this try in the last second to make the semis. Where's your bunker now? Scott Drinkwater was named the men's MVP for the tournament, and Matty Studden for the women's. And with the Nines all said and done, we were ready for the All-Stars match. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that the Club World Challenge was played at this time, but come on, who really cares about that? The NRL All-Stars match had become such an important part of the NRL's preseason schedule. This was the 11th consecutive All-Star match and featured some pretty strong lineups. The women's match was played first and was subsequently taken out by the Indigenous All-Stars, winning 10-4. The Maoris, however, got their revenge a couple hours later, beating the Indigenous men 30-16. The game started strong for the Maoris as Dallin Watini-Zalesniak scored an absolute beauty for the Maoris 4 minutes in. Look, with DWZ, I don't know which hair I like better, but you can't lie, he's a sexy bloke. Josh Curran would respond with a great try of his own, but only minutes later, a deflected kick from Dylan Walker fell into the hands of Cody Nikorima, who scored to put the Maoris in front. The Indigenous boys would hit back and take the lead, but Brandon Smith absolutely tore the Indigenous All-Stars apart through the middle, scoring 2 tries as a result of his quick brilliance and unstoppable power. He rightfully won a man of the match, and after that match was said and done, we were ready for round 1. Boy, I sure hope nothing goes wrong. Now, before I get into the actual games, I think it's pretty important to mention some of the big signings that happened that year. Oh my. Kurt Capewell was banished from the Shire and joined Land of Five Guys and seemingly the only Outback Steakhouse in all of Australia, Penrith. 79-year-old Josh Morris somehow got a contract with the Roosters. Appy Coruscant joined the Panthers from Manly, which I still haven't gotten over being a Manly fan. Brodie Croft left Melbourne to join Brisbane. Regan Campbell-Gillard angered the whole of the West when he moved from Penrith to crosstown rivals Parramatta. And of course, the pièce de résistance of shithousery transfers. Latrell Mitchell had come off 2 consecutive premierships with the Roosters, and while being happy with the club in terms of team success, he was hoping to achieve more at a personal level. This was evident when he stated he wanted to play fullback. Basically, with James Tedesco pretty much locking down that number 1 spot for the rest of his life, Latrell Mitchell left the Roosters to try and pursue his individual progress at fullback. Well, you know, it can't be too bad. Not unless he joins, I don't know, South Sydney. South Sydney snapped the superstar up from their crosstown rivals, and fans rightly so weren't pleased about this. Look, Roosters fans, you kind of had it coming when you signed Angus Cheesebot Crichton back in 2019. The regular season started pretty much as you'd expect, with mediocre attendance and sloppy football souring what was meant to be a great opening round. Parramatta and Canterbury squared off in round 1, in an excruciatingly painful game to watch, and in the end, Parramatta won the game 8-2 after a 65th minute Reid Marnie try. But let me tell you, man, this was some of the sloppiest football I think I've ever seen. But all while that was happening, the threat of coronavirus was rearing its ugly head, not over Australia, but over the entire world. To try and control this, the NRL implemented some unorthodox methods. Ball washing. You see, that's why Manly lost in round 1. They lost because the ball was wet.
It's been raining. Yeah. Are you being serious? It's raining for both teams.
Yeah. After round 1, the Knights and the Raiders sat at the top of the table. And for Knights fans, this is probably as close as you'll ever get to winning the minor premiership. Sorry, Knights fans.
Just kidding, bruv. All in good fun.
The threat of COVID was real now, and the only conceivable option was to limit the attendance. In round 2, the first game of lockdown football we were given was Bulldogs vs the Cowboys. Taumalola was absolutely cracked this game and was a main factor in them winning 24-16. You know what? Say what you will. The Titans fans had a nice time out there. After round 2, the NRL announced that due to the uncontrollable threat of coronavirus, all rugby league competitions would be shut down in Australia. In the following weeks, matches that were meant to be played in regional grounds were cancelled, as well as Magic Round. And State of Origin couldn't survive this either, as that was postponed. We'll get to that later. All we could do now is wait and hope. Would the season be cancelled, or would it return sometime later this year when things have calmed down? Thank it was the latter. On the 9th of April, the NRL announced its intentions to restart the competition on the 28th of May, with most details still to be determined. The decision was one of 3 recommendations to come out of Project Apollo, which was created by the NRL's Innovations Committee to analyse potential solutions to restart the season. Other recommendations included ensuring that a 3-game State of Origin series could go ahead, and the grand finals be played with a reasonable crowd, bearing the circumstances. During late April and early May, general government restrictions began to ease in Australia due to the successful efforts to slow the spread of COVID. This was where we saw the relocation of teams due to COVID hotspots. The city of Melbourne had been placed under strict quarantine, and then came the question of where were they going to train and where were they going to facilitate themselves. Melbourne moved up to Albury in New South Wales with no foreseeable problems going ahead, and only later in the year had to move up to Queensland. The real problem was for the New Zealand Warriors. With the travel ban being a massive thorn in the facilitative freedom for the Warriors to train in their own conditions, they were officially granted entry to Tamworth, where they entered 2 weeks of self-isolation and were permitted to train to avoid any unfair disadvantage. The international travel restrictions meant the side had to remain in Australia for an indefinite period of time. However, there was talks of a trans-Tasman bubble, in which travel between Australia and New Zealand would be exclusively permitted. This left the possibility open for the Warriors to return to New Zealand and play home matches there later in the season. However, this just didn't end up happening. We kinda had something in common, didn't we, Was? The new draw was released on the 21st of May with just 6 venues used between rounds 3 to 7. The Warriors moved to Gosford to play at the Central Coast Stadium, the Titans played home games at Suncorp with the Broncos, and the New South Wales teams in Canberra were divided between Bankwest Stadium, Campbelltown Stadium and Central Coast Stadium, in a way that no stadium hosts more than 1 match in a day. The Cowboys continued to host their games with their normal crowd, Queensland Country Back Stadium, and the Storm played the majority of their games at Suncorp. All teams, bar the Storm and the Warriors, were permitted to return to their home grounds. Also, the fixtures were shortened down from the usual 25 to 20 rounds. The competition finally restarted on the 28th of May, with the Eels taking on the Broncos in Brisbane. Hang on, 1 ref? Am I reading that right? Wow, this virus really did give the NRL some time to think and fix what was broken. The implementation of the 1 referee was massive for the game, as it allowed for less confusion on the pitch between officials. Parramatta ran riot over Brisbane that day and won 34-6. Okay, maybe Croft wasn't the next Cronk. The Warriors, with the spirit of the whole of New Zealand behind them, beat the Dragons 18-0. But the most notable game in this round was the Panthers and Knights. With no Nathan Cleary to guide them, the boys in black were facing a pretty tough opponent in an informed Knights. The Panthers hadn't had the greatest 2019 season, finishing 10th, but this team had some great young players making their way into the fray. These included Matt Burton, Jerome Luai, Stephen Crichton, Brian Toe, and Moses Leota. The match started in Penrith's favour, with a mountain of possession and a couple penalties piggybacking them up the pitch. They raced to a 14-0 lead after 25 minutes and looked to be in complete control of the game. The Knights began to come to life just as the half was ending, when Jacob Saifidi crossed over. Two-try hero and future Origin legend Bradman Best then scored 2 of his own to bring the Knights level with 10 minutes remaining. The game went into extra time, and Matt Burton had 4 separate chances to ice the game, but just couldn't do it. He missed every single shot at a one-pointer in that match, and it ended in a draw. I remember watching this game, and even after, I thought, there's no way this man's ever going to be clutch. I was wrong. Despite all the wacky results, the NRL still had its consistent classics. Notable games include Round 4, Titans 28 v Tigers 23, and Eels 19, Manly 16. I still haven't forgiven the touch judge to this day about that. Storm 27 defeating the Roosters 25 in Round 8, South 31 defeating North Queensland 30 in Round 14, and the Tigers 34 beating Manly 32 in Round 17. That was only a handful, and there were so many other incredible games that this video would probably be like 5 years long if I did mention them. No! It seems like this year, fever from the virus wasn't the only fever going around. There was white line fever. This white line fever was in full effect as tries were being dished out like it was Christmas. Seriously, this year made 60+ point games look usual. The Rabbitohs beat the Roosters 60-8 in the final round of the regular season, with Alex Magic Johnson scoring 5 of his own. This was obviously embarrassing for the Roosters, but no other team was more embarrassing than Brisbane. Coming into round 3 off the back of 2 fantastic performances against the Cowboys and the Rabbitohs, Brisbane looked poised to topple Parramatta in front of a good number of seats. Side note, does anyone remember how terrible these things were? Oh, NRL, what were you thinking? I think this stuff was happening all over the world. Like, if anyone watches the EPL and remembers this Leeds game, I mean, that's completely Seibold had clearly not trained Brisbane to adapt to the pace of the game, as ruck infringements were absolutely killing the Broncos and they were completely run off their feet. Okay, 1 defeat in 3 isn't bad. They'll get used to the rules and bounce back. Surely, right? They lost 59-0 against the Roosters the following week. The biggest defeat in their 33-year history. Also the first time they've been held scoreless at Suncorp. Okay, it's a blip. World-class teams learn from this and want to perform and continue at a high professional level. What a shit show. The Broncos were sitting second last by round 7, and the club was in serious turmoil. Players stopped wanting to train, and off-field incidents represented the awful attitude these players had to their reputation as an NRL player. Even after a 30-12 loss to the Titans, Brisbane players were laughing around with their Gold Coast opponents. The media, rightfully so, criticised the mentality and the attitude of the playing group. And when the Broncos lost 26-16 to New Zealand a week later, it looked to be too much for them. Players visibly in tears after the defeat. By August, coach Anthony Seibold had resigned and was replaced by interim manager Peter Gentle. Nothing seemed to work, dropping Darius Boyd as captain and handing leadership roles over to Pat Carrigan and Brodie Croft. The youngsters just seemed like damage control at this point. And while things were torrid for Brisbane for most of the season, there were some shining lights. And yes, if you hadn't noticed already, I changed. I don't do these things in one go. We saw prominent rise in players like Pat Carrigan, Thomas Flegler, and Ethan Bullimore, who still have so much to achieve, being so young. But if we're talking about shining lights, there's one that's hard not to go past. Kotoni Staggs. Kotoni Staggs was by far Brisbane's best player in 2020, scoring 10 tries and even scored try of the year against St George Illawarra.
Kotoni Staggs, a little bit of room to move for the first time tonight. Puts on a fend, still going, Kotoni Staggs, he's got support, White needs support to Tony Stage.
Like a knife through butter. Another layer to this f***ed up cake of a season were the Dally M results. Most experts and fans had unanimously agreed that Nathan Cleary was by far the best player in the 2020 season. Heavyweight performances against teams like the Roosters and the Storm gave this opinions of validity, as his game had matured to the level of a world-class halfback. Fantastic with the ball at both his hands and his feet, we were truly witnessing one of the great rises into stardom, much like we'd seen with Thurston and Johns before him.
We won on Golden State. Open shot, fate of the universe on the line, or the Martians have the death beam pointed at Earth, you better hit it. I want
Nathan Cleary.
Nathan Cleary was on 11 points, only 2 points behind leader Harry Grant, as voting went behind closed doors. Now there was speculation that the NRL would take these points off him after his little TikTok escapade, but these rumours would be quashed by the NRL. On Dally M night, the results were being tallied, and oh. Well, it looks like Buzz Rothfield has leaked the results. Jack Whiten to win it? Oh, come on. Well, we know that's not true, Buzz, you stupid dinosaur. Now, Nathan Cleary finished not first, not even second, but third in the 2020 Dally M race, leaving the NRL community and, of course, me, completely baffled. Now, don't get me wrong, Jack Whiten had a fantastic year. But to say that he was the best player in 2020 is just wrong. Look, I just can't help but imagine if Nathan Cleary goes his whole career without ever winning the Dally M. Look, I don't think I can live in a world where Matt Orford and Todd Carney have one and Cleary doesn't. As I mentioned earlier, since the season was thrown off track, a lot was done to try to get back to normal. And on the 15th of May, the NRL announced that a 3-game State of Origin series would go ahead after the regular season and the finals had ended. Now these were to be played on the 4th, 11th and 18th of November, all the pre-scheduled venues. That includes you, Adelaide. I don't think I can ever watch another Adelaide Origin again after the last 2 results. Teams are announced after the grand final, giving some players very little time to recuperate, like Cameron Munster, Nathan Cleary, Christian Welch, Tino, and Josh Adokar, who all played in the 2020 grand final. Oh yeah, I should probably mention this as it was a pretty important game that year. The Storm and the Panthers faced off in the 2020 grand final, and the Panthers lost. There you go. Midway through the season, Queensland announced that they had recruited the services of veteran coach Wayne Bennett to try and guide them into an unlikely series victory over New South Wales. The Blues had won the past 2 series, and with the already star-studded team they had, were looking to make it 3 in a row. Never discount the Maroons. In the first game, after a dominant first half, New South Wales led 10-0. But major sloppiness allowed Queensland to pounce, as they came back to win 18-14. The second game was absolutely dominated by the Blues, as Cleary showed once again why he's the best halfback in the league. The Blues won 34-10, and we're all set for a showdown at Suncorp in the decider. With New South Wales hungry off the win, and key players out for Queensland, pretty much looks like a walk in the park. I hate rugby league. I hate New South Wales, I hate rugby league, I hate all of this! Queensland won the game, and ultimately the series 20-14, and DCE took a swipe at the New South Wales media with his "on behalf of the worst Queensland team ever" quote. Oh man, I still don't know how I ended up cheering his name on next season. But hey, 2021's gonna be great for you, right? Thank you for watching this absolute monstrosity of a video. I'm sure in the future I'll be able to afford a better mic and a better camera, but in the meantime, you're gonna have to put up with this. Drop a like and a sub, and even comment on what you think I should do next. Don't be a stranger. Have a good one.